So once you've got a basic mobile mining setup or whatever source of passive income you're using, you'll likely start having enough money to start buying real combat ships like this Quasar fire carrier I have here. Slight tip, the Imperial model is much nicer than the Rebel model. It's got the quad shielded hangars with the animated shields and on it. Anyway, I've got a Quasar here, I've got a Carrack, and I've got 4 Tartan patrol cruisers, and I also have 1 Aero Corvette. And I'm going to be using this Aero Corvette as a defensive M8 bomber as opposed to an offensive one that shoots missiles everywhere. What a defensive bomber is it has CCDS, which lets it shoot chaff, and it has chaff. And what it does is it just shoots down, it protects the entire fleet by shooting chaff at everything. So this way I don't have to worry about missiles, I don't have to sideline any turrets. Like if I were to tell this Tartan to attack missiles only, that's not very reliable. And it prevents the Tartan from shooting at other things. So we have a dedicated chaff boat, Tartans for anti-fighter, the Carrack for a bit bigger targets, and the Quasar for carrying. And that's not the right button. But we have no fighters on it right now. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing a quick way to salvage these fighters. So I'm going to go over how to use this fleet. I'm not using MLCC. It's just going to be the fleet commander system and how I personally choose to command this fleet and how to use it effectively in battle. But there will be some timestamps in the description or maybe a pinned comment on this video. Please look for the area you want because I'm first going to be going over how to my very efficient way of salvaging fighters and getting them all, from abandoned ship to usable in fleet, that process. I have a very efficient way of getting that done, and I'll be going over that first. If you want to jump straight to the fleet combat, just check for the timestamp. So alright, let me go and get salvaging. So when you want to salvage fighters, many of you already know about the amazing satellite monitoring menu by Jubarbe, the author of Mayhem. But here we have Heretics End, which is a sector that constantly has rebel scum coming in from the north, and their battles with the Imperials will result in a lot of abandoned ships. Now, the abandoned ship rate the bailing rate is nerfed in Star Wars LU 1.2.9, the upcoming update. Now, it's about 2/3 what it used to be. It's not a big deal. You're still going to find tons of abandoned ships. And you just also won't find capitals anymore because that was broken and it breaks the game. But anyway, let's go to Heretics End. And I'll be explaining as I go along how I have this set up. So what most people probably do is when you start out, you fly to an abandoned ship, you get out, you claim it, you repair it, you get back in your ship, you send the abandoned ship to a shipyard, then you forget about it or you upgrade it, and then you have to deal with the hassle of getting it back to your base. Maybe it's across the map, but I have that all automated. So we're going to hit our hotkey. We've targeted the nearest abandoned ship, autopilot. Let's go over to it. I have the remote system remote system control software, so I can remotely claim it, hit my hotkey for flag to tug, onto the next ship. So this ship is already ours. Let's go on to the next one. Looks like the Imperial fleet just defeated the rebels already. Right, claim, flag for tug, that ship is ours. Let's go to the next one. I've got a turbo booster on my Corvette. We've got some lag. It looks like there are ships jumping in here. Flag for tug, here's another one, claim, flag for tug. Let's see, we've got another one down here, it's a TIE fighter, let's claim that. Alright, that ship is ours. Now you'll notice that in LitCube's universe, unlike vanilla, bailed ships have all their equipment. So if we look here, this TIE interceptor, it has its weapons. We go to its freight, it has its shields. Now, their loadouts may not be perfect. They may not be the best weapons or all the shields, but they're good enough. They're free. You can't complain about free. And if you spend time, perfecting each one's loadout, you're just going to be wasting time. You might as well just buy fighters in bulk and, use them as your carrier fighters, which is also something that's perfectly normal. You don't have to use all these scrap ships, but by the time you're in the game where you can buy a Quasar, or you have your own enough money to buy M7s like that, you're likely already going to have a whole bunch of salvaged fighters, and this is nothing new to you. So let me explain what's going to happen. So because they're flagged for tug, we have our Gozanti Vanguard tug ship. Now I think you can have multiple tug ships, but we only need one. And what it's doing is it already has 3 ships landed. It's going around the sector, and it's picking up all of the ships that I flagged for tug. So those ships on the bottom are ships from Heretic's End. If we look at the landed ships, see, those are our ships flagged tug. They're all damaged, and it's going to take them back to its base. Its home base is in the Galactic Empire sector. It's an XQ2 platform called Tug Base, and if we look at its own ships, it has a freighter that's bringing in energy cells from one of my other factories, and those energy cells are just so that the tug ship has jump fuel resupply. You could also set up a dock agent to buy energy cells, and that's how you could deal with that. But the tug ship is just home base there, so what it does is it just brings the ship back. I have stripping off, so it's not going to it's not going to consolidate all of the ship equipment. It's going to leave them equipped. It's basically just acting as a taxi. And that's so much better than having all of these, telling these captured ships to go to a shipyard, because then they're going to fly really slow, and then you're going to forget about them, and then they're all going to be in different spots. Like if I went to, let's say I found abandoned ships here in PT&I headquarters, I'll jump in here, claim them, and send them to the Talati shipyard over here. No, I could just jump in, flag them for tug, and the Gozani it'll just add it to the queue for the Gozanti. So our tug ship will clear out Heretic's End of all these captured ships, and then it will move on to the captured ships elsewhere in the galaxy, and that's all it does. So you need to set up a tug for this. It's highly recommended. And if you have a bigger ship than a Gozanti, remember this is supposed to be an early game setup. If you have bigger ships than this, you can have something that carries corvettes, and then you can flag corvettes for tug and have those automatically salvaged as well. So it's got its 4 ships that it can carry. It's going to jump out. There, it jumped out. If we look at Galactic Empire, we can see our tug ship has returned. It's got its 4 ships that it captured, and it's going to just drop them off at this base. And then it's going to come back, grab 4 more, drop them off, grab 4 more, drop those off. So let's go ahead and see if we can find any more ships. For the heck of it, I just went ahead and bought a bunch of ships. So if we look at the Galactic Empire sector, if we look at the shipyard, I just bought 10 TIE Interceptors, and I gave them all basic equipment. We're going to use these TIE Interceptors as well. So broadcast the dock ships to tell them to go to the tug base. So our Quasar is going to be using all these salvage ships we just got from Heretic's End, plus these TIE Interceptors I just bought. It doesn't matter. You can make them all uniform and perfect, or you can repurpose all the salvaged ships. Repurposing the salvaged ships is free and quite easy if you're using this setup. Looks like our tug ship is back in Heretic's End. It's already picking up a Y-Wing. Just grabbed a Z95. Oh, that's a problem. So the problem with Heretic's End, of course, is that it's an active war zone. We just had a Rebel Quasar come through the gate, and it brought a whole bunch of Rebel fighters that our brave Imperials are going to have to defend against. But once we have our fleet up and running, we'll be able to come here with it and fend off these Rebel insurgents to defend the glory of the Empire without our tug ships over here in danger. So our tug ship is coming out of the north gate. Let's see, is it set to auto jump? Yeah, it should auto jump. It's being harassed by the rebels. Let's see, it has how many landed ships? So it is still working. You'll want to watch it though, because if you have it operating at Heretic's End like this, it's quite dangerous. Now you could use a corvette as a tug ship. A corvette that not a lot of people know about is the Imperial Remnant Corvette. If you look at the shipyard, there is something called the Imperial Light Corvette. This thing actually docks a handful of fighters, and it's a corvette. It docks, I think, 5 fighters, which is more than the Gozani, and it's much tougher than the Gozani because it's an actual corvette. So you may want to look at that as a tug ship. Not a lot of people know that that corvette exists in the mod because it's a very obscure one. Alright, looks like our tug ship was unfazed by those rebels, and if we look at it, it has 4 more ships that it just salvaged, and it is headed back to bring those home. Have one here that I forgot to flag for tug. You'll find the hotkeys for target nearest abandoned ship, like I just did now with a new A-wing, and the hotkey for flag for tug in the interface section of the commands menu. Those are both features that LitCube added to the game to make salvaging much easier. Because if you're having to do a spacewalk each time, that just takes forever. So I'll cut back once the tug ship has claimed both of these two and brought them back, and I'll go over the next steps. Looks like our tug ship has returned. Let's get out of the line of fire here in Heretic Sand while we wait. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have this repair ship. This is a TIE Interceptor repair ship. It's got 4 repair lasers. So the way repair ships work in this mod is I've hidden 4 repair ships around the map, and you'll have to find them. They could be wherever. They're probably out in those unknown sectors, but you didn't hear that from me. And there's also repair lasers you need to find separately, and those are hidden all over the map as well. You can use the satellite monitoring script to find both of these if you have satellites. But anyway, we have the TIE Interceptor repair ship. We're going to use it to repair all of those fighters we just got, because if we look at the landed ships in our tug base, we have the TIE Interceptors that we bought and outfitted from the Imperials, and then we have all these flag tug scrapyard ships that we got from Heretic Sand. But first, actually, we need to give them engine tuning, because although repairing them will restore their engine to the max that it's upgraded to, it's not fully upgraded because AIs don't fully upgrade their ships. So when you capture abandoned ships, they're not fully upgraded. So if you look at this Y-Wing, you can see that the max speed is upgradable. So we do have the base in a shipyard sector, so we could just send them all to the Imperial equipment dock over here and have them get their engine tunings. But instead, because we have our own space station, and this works for a trade station or an equipment dock, anything that isn't a factory, anything with a dockware manager, you go to dockware manager, order licensing. We're going to unlock the ability to do engine tuning at our base. So this is the tug base's dockware manager menu. We go to upgrade ship. We'll select one. We can see that we can do engine tuning. So let's just give each of these ships engine tuning. That has engine tuning. Give this one engine tuning. So we're maxing out all of the engine tuning on all of these ships without having to deal with going to a shipyard to do it. And that should be the last of the engine tunings. So all of our ships here have fully upgraded engines. So if we go to here, we need to get them all repaired. So we're going to use our repair ship to do this. So we're going to broadcast all fighters and tell them to follow the repair ship. So if we look at the Galactic Empire sector, here's our repair ship, and here's all our fighters. They're all going to fly to the repair ship. Now, they've all got damaged hulls here, so we're going to tell the repair ship. Now, the repair ship needs special command software. It doesn't come with that by default. It might have it, but it might not. But you need this, and you need repair lasers, and then it will have a special command called Repair Ships in Sector. And then it will go around and repair all the ships. And if you're actually in sector, you'll see it shooting the repair lasers. But as always, you know, with everything's faster out of sector because collisions and rotations aren't actually calculated. But you can see here that, that one just got repaired. This one just got repaired. Let's see. It's repairing them one at a time. Here's another one. Here's another one. And once these are repaired, they are ready to go with our quasar. Let's see. Another one. Now we do have one A-wing here that it has lasers, but it doesn't have shields. I'm just going to leave it without shields because it's going to get destroyed either way, and I don't really care about it. It's not really worth much to sell, so we'll just keep it as cannon fodder. It's pretty fast and it's pretty small, so it can draw enemy fire pretty effectively. Alright, we've got our fighters. Now we just need the carrier. We just need to put them in the carrier. So let's go to Galactic Empire. And let's tell our quasar to jump to the sector, Galactic Empire, navigation, jump. And it should meet us there. Alright, so at this point in the video, we are going to be going over how to set up the fighters and how I would organize this fleet. Now, there's no definitive way to do this. There's many, many ways to do it. I'm not using MLCC here. And I wouldn't recommend that for such a small fleet. MLCC is really endgame once you have, you know, all the Saturn complex hubs and you have dozens of these ships that you need to organize. But let's tell all fighters in our all the other ships that were set to follow the quasar have jumped in, because all of these ships have if we go to the command console of a Tartan here. They have auto jump and they have auto jump refill. If we check their freight, they have energy cells. And their orders right now are to follow the quasar. So when the quasar jumped in, they jumped in after it. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell all of our fighters in sector to dock at the quasar. We're going to tell our repair ship to go home to the tug base because we don't want it as a part of the fleet. Alright, we have our fighters docking up with the quasar. And home bases aren't set right now. We're going to do that in a second because there's a menu to automatically set home bases for all docked ships quite easily. But they have to be docked. So we're going to wait for them all to dock up. Now there is an upgrade that's about 14 million credits that lets the ships be beamed aboard instantly. It's called a docking transporter extension or something like that. You don't really need that, but if you don't have it, it just means that the fighters are physically flying into the hangar like this. And that could take some time if you're trying to get out, of a tricky situation in a hurry. So we've got a B-Wing. That's a nice ship to find salvaged. It's a very heavy fighter. All right, any more? I think that's the last one. Yep, that should be all of them. Okay, so our quasar isn't quite full. We can dock, let's see, 11 more ships, but this is fine to start. We can just buy more ships or whatever, find more salvage ships later and just add them to the fleet. So what we're going to do is we're going to view the landed ships. Now, what I did was I clicked on this, and once this menu is up, I can hit L. So if we hit advanced, or let's see, landed ships, you'll see L right here. That means you can just hit L on the keyboard to bring that up. So the L menu, command console landed ships. We're going to hide them from the property menu because we don't want to see all those fighters cluttering our property menu. We're going to home base them at the quasar. Now we're also going to make the quasar a fleet commander. So the quasar's command menu, we're going to become fleet commander. We're also going to rename the quasar because I like to have my fleet commanders named. So quasar commander, we're going to color the ship's name because I like the commanders to stick out in my property menu. We're going to make it magenta. So if we look at our property menu, we have the quasar commander. Let's actually make it cyan because I'm not using that color. So at our property menu, we have quasar commander at the top, and it has no ships in its fleet. Now what I'm going to do, and there's no best way to do this, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the escorts to the fleet, but I'm going to leave the fighters out of the fleet. So if we hit this button right here, view one ship in fleet, this brings up a menu of all ships that we have in this sector. So here's all of our fighters that are docked with the quasar. Here's random universe traders and dock agents operating here. Here's a TL ship I have in here and the tug ship. We're going to add our aero corvette, our Carrack, and our Tartan patrol cruisers. So all of its escorts are now in the fleet with it. So what I can do is when I open the quasar's command menu, and we can make this easy by hitting Shift 2 or Shift 1 to pin it to our menu in the top right or top left of the screen. So we can click here and hit C to bring up the quasar's command console wherever we might be in the galaxy. So we don't actually have to find it on the map or in the property menu. We can just click at the top right of our screen, bring up the command console. And here we have access to broadcast to all fleet ships. So we can also do fleet call to arms, and that will tell all of the followers to follow the Carrack. The quasar, getting them mixed up. The big triangle guy right here. And they will form up on it. And then we can give the fleet commander manual commands. So if we tell it to move somewhere, the other ships will move with it. So let's go find a fight. Alright, I found a suitable target here in Herron's Nebula. We have a moderate rebel fleet with a Nebulon. It's got some fighters, it's got some escort corvettes. Let's go ahead and take that on. So, Herron's Nebula, West Gate. Alright, we've entered Herron's Nebula. To summon our fleet, we can see the Nebulon down there that we're going to go attack. To summon our fleet, all we have to do is click on our fleet commander in the property menu or up here. We need to fleet call to arms. Now, I will say, this fleet menu up here, don't use 2 through 7. They just simply don't work. So once we've called to arms, let's tell the fleet commander to follow me. And that's all we have to do, and the fleet will jump. So, all right, what is shooting at me? Some random VCX-11. It's going to get absolutely fried. So the Quasar is the first to jump, and everything else is following the Quasar, so they'll jump shortly. The rebels here aren't even a big enough threat that we need to launch our fighters. Alright, the fleet is here, and they're going to destroy these petty rebel traders. Let's go ahead and set our sights on that Nebula. So all we're doing is giving a command to the commander. All the other ships are simply following it and protecting it, as Rally Call to Arms does. So you can see that's how they're moving. Quasar leading the way, everyone else is following. And we're going to go take on the Nebula. Now, due to the way the ships clump like this, they're in a formation such that any random stray trader is not going to be a threat. They all have their combined firepower, and their turrets are doing all the shooting. So even though they don't have attack commands, their turrets are going to fire off at any nearby rebels and take them out pretty easily. Fortunately, our Carrack fell behind due to pathfinding quirks, but it'll catch up. Now, I don't have a home base for any of these fleet ships. I mean, the fighters are home based at the Quasar, but these guys are eventually going to run out of jump fuel. If I keep just jumping them around everywhere, they're going to run out of jump fuel. And to get more, I could dock them all at a, an equipment dock or something that sells them, and they'll automatically restock. Okay, looks like our Nebulon friend has found us. So let's broadcast to all fleet ships. Let's tell them to attack all enemies. So this will have the other ships break off and attack first. We do have the Quasar leading the charge. It is the tankiest ship here, but we don't want the carrier to have to emergency jump out. You see, its threshold is set to 30%. So if it gets to 30% shield, it's going to jump out and leave the fighters stranded. So let's launch the fighters now that the fleet's been engaged. So broadcast to all fleet ships. Oh, wrong button. Attack all enemies. Let's tell the Quasar to move back, fall back, let the other ships do all the talking. All right, fighters are launched, and fighters have they're not being targeted. Well, one is. Enemies don't typically retarget very often. Another thing we need to do is tell the Arrow Corvette to follow the Quasar. We may actually want to. Oh dang it! You know what happened? I have the Quasar on 0 auto jump, so it jumps within the same sector. I told it to go here, and because it was closer to jump to the gate to get there, it took the gate. That actually worked out. Now we don't have to worry about the Quasar. Let's tell this guy to follow me. Basically, we want this Arrow Corvette just to follow us whenever it is in this battle. See, it's firing chaff. All it does is fire chaff at the nearby targets whenever they shoot missiles. All it does is shoot missiles at the whole fleet. So we want it following the leader, but in our case, the leader jumped away. And all it's going to do is just shoot chaff. So as I was saying earlier, the fleet doesn't have a home base, so refueling is going to be an issue. So we do have supply command software, so we could use a single button press to have our supply ship refuel all ships in this sector with the jump fuel they need. But supply command software is a little tricky to understand. I did cover it in the big fleet tutorial if you want to jump to that. But I recommend buying an equipment dock, because an equipment dock can dock all of these ships, and you can just tell them to all return home. So the Quasar and the Carrack are going to return home, dock. The Tartans are going to dock too, and they'll just resupply. And then you can summon them from that, and they'll have all their energy cells. And then you can summon them again whenever you need them. Just tell them to return home after every battle. Okay, this didn't end up that well because of another Corvette. The Rebel using a Consular Corvette actually came in here. And a good thing about salvaged fighters is that they all have missiles, because they typically have missiles in their cargo bay when you find them. So our fleet is spread out here. This is, all because I left that jump setting on something other than 1. You definitely want to leave them on 1. so they don't start doing shenanigans within the same sector. You don't want them jumping to different parts of the sector. So the issue with that battle was we had the jump drive setting wrong. So let's tell our ships here to attack all enemies again. So they actually engage those fighter drones up there. Let's do fleet rally call to arms. So this will get all of our other ships to rush over and help the Quasar. See, we had a Tartan right there jump to the gate because it's on its jump range is set to 0 as well. So I recommend setting your minimum jump range to 0 for traders, but set it to 1 for combat ships. You don't want them using gates within the battle to reposition because that just spreads them out. Alright, this guy should be toast. Alright, so we do have all of our fighters that need repairs, so we can broadcast to all ships in sector, and instead of telling them to dock at the Quasar, we're going to tell them to return home. The reason why we use return home is because if you have 2 Quasars, and you have 2 sets of fighters, you can just broadcast to all ships return home, and they'll go to their respective carriers. Alright, let's see if we can find another battle. Now, they are shooting at something. I think it's just, yeah, it's just fighter drones. We can ignore that. So we'll wait till all the fighters dock up. And all we have to do to repair all these fighters is just jump the Carrack to where the repair ship is, tell all the ships to follow the repair ship, and then, I know this looks crazy, but it's just traders, they're not a threat. So to repair all the fighters, all we have to do is tell, why is this guy not docking? As I was saying, rebels, is all we have to do is tell the Quasar to jump to where the repair ship is, broadcast to all landed ships, follow the repair ship, tell the repair ships to repair all ships in sector, then tell all the ships to return home, and then they're good to go. That's it. Okay, we've taken that down. Let's see if we can find another battle. Alright, this is totally manageable. Alright, so here's what we do. Orders follow me. I'm not sure if they have the jump fuel for this, but let's hope they all do. Remember, supply command software can resupply all of the ships in the entire fleet without having them go dock somewhere. Alright, they had enough fuel. Or you could have them docked at you could have them home based at a player-owned equipment dock that has energy cells that they auto-resupply it. Alright, so we've got a pirate patrol here. So let's tell the Quasar commander to attack all enemies. It's going to find the nearest one and lead the other ships into battle. And the other ships are just on rally call to arms, so they are just following and escorting that Quasar. The Quasar's first one in, because we're not fighting any super heavy threats like a Nebulon. We don't have to worry about the Quasar leading the charge, so we're going to let the Quasar lead the charge. Actually, we might tell the Carrack to lead the charge instead, so let's tell this guy to stop command. So what I did was I told the Carrack to attack, and I told the Quasar to stop. So the Carrack, oh, okay, they're here on top of us anyway. So let's tell all fleet ships to attack all enemies. Let's tell our arrow to follow the Quasar, because we don't want it attacking, we want it escorting. And we don't tell it to escort because we don't want it to attack anything. We just want it to be in the vicinity. See that pirate that just shot a missile? It just got chaffed by the arrow corvette. The closer the arrow corvette is, the better it is at shooting things down. And see, all the pirate ships are attacking the Carrack because we told the Carrack to go in first. And that means our Quasar isn't in danger. So we can launch all our fighters, attack all enemies. Now, if you don't like doing the broadcast, oh, that guy's going crazy with the chaff. If you don't like broadcasting to all ships like that, you can go to the Quasar, go to Combat Carrier Command. We have the Carrier Command software upgrade, and then this will command all of its own ships to do stuff. I don't like that. That menu's hard to get to. Alright, so our fighters should be free to engage. All the pirates seem to be busy with our Carrack cruiser and not worrying about our fighters, which is good. We don't want our fighters getting hit. Now the Carrack is going to emergency jump, so it is going to get a bit messy coming up, but by the time it jumps out, our fighters should be on these pirates. Somebody just fired swarm missiles. The arrows shot them all down. If it's chaff, I just took one myself. Alright, and this fleet is taken care of. So, this is the basics. Have your M8 escort bomber with chaff and CDDS, the chaff upgrade, just following something. You don't want it to attack because it'll fly towards the enemy and not protect your ships. And then everything else can attack. Alright, so now that we're done, we're going to call back all ships. So, landed ships in sector, dock at the Quasar, or return home. We're going to rally call to arms. Now remember, you could put the fighters in a fleet. The fighters could have their own fleet commander. Like I could promote the B-Wing to the fighter fleet commander and have 2 fleets here. There's so many ways to do it. Or I could be using all of these without any fleets. But now we've got some rebels in this sector. They've got their own Actually, their fleet is quite similar to mine. The rebels coming down here with their ugly Quasar model, I might add. They have their own M8 escort bomber. They've got a Marauder cruiser up here. They've got their own hammerhead, and they've got their own fighters. So this will be interesting. I should be able to take them down with very minimal losses, even though our fleets are about equal. So we're going to tell our... Okay, so the call to arms called the Carrack back. Remember, it jumped away because its shields were damaged. Now, its shields are damaged, so I'm going to lower its threshold so it stays in the next battle a little bit longer. We're going to tell our Quasar to attack their Quasar. And we're going to let our Quasar lead the charge. Oh, I told the Carrack, didn't I? Dang it. Okay, fleet, rally call to arms. And then tell this commander to attack the Quasar. Oh, I did tell it. It's just waiting because it was waiting for a ship to dock. Alright, away it goes. The rest of the fleet is escorting it. And we are going to clash with the rebels. All fighters are docked. We're going to undock them once the rebels have chosen their targets. I don't really fear that M8 bomber because the M8 is... because we have our Aero Corvette. The Aero Corvette is going to shoot down any missiles they possibly shoot. You've got to love X3 pathfinding. Not as bad as Empire at War, though. Okay, looks like they actually targeted me because I was the first one there. They're launching their fighters from their pitiful little Quasar. Our Aero Corvette is already going to town with the chaff. Alright, so let's tell all fleet ships to attack all enemies. Let's tell the landed fighters to attack all enemies. Let's tell the Aero Corvette to follow the Quasar. Now, I may actually take the Aero Corvette out of the fleet and just tell it to follow the Quasar, because if I do that, I won't have to do that extra step, right? It'll always just be following the Quasar, independent of the fleet. It'll just be here unassociated, just to protect the Quasar. Alright, let's go ahead and engage these enemies. So our fighters are being launched. Some of our Tartans are emergency jumping because we didn't have them recharged from the last battle. All their shields are still damaged. Our Carrack is quite slow. It's friendly fire to me, but it's also quite far out in the distance. So as I'm fighting, I'm paying attention to all of my ships and their shields. The Quasar, it's still way above 30%. It's actually in danger of ramming that Rebel Quasar. The Rebel Quasar is very close. But the priority target is going to be those Rebel fighters. Rebel fighters are really nasty. Okay, we did lose one of our salvaged X-Wings, I think. Some of our Tartans are jumping out. And as they jump out, our fleet is going to lose its collective firepower. We do have that Carrack in the back, and that is providing a lot of heavy chaff fire against... flak fire against all of the fighters. But main thing is, the Quasar's fine. We don't have to worry about missiles. I think all their fighters are dead. Okay, there's a few more in the sector. But it's mainly just that Hammerhead Corvette left and their Quasar. So let's see. All right, so in this fight, we lost one of those Chromie salvage ships in Herron's Nebula due to the first battle. We lost the second, so we lost 2 of them in Herron's Nebula, and then we only lost 1 in this fight. So in this sector, I fought a pirate fleet, and then I also fought fighting this rebel fleet. Okay, make that 2 losses. But remember how easy it was to get these fighters. All we have to do is just, flag for tug and use the remote system claim software, and we have more fighters. So our fleet is spreading out at this point. We don't want that. So I'm going to fleet call to arms again. We want the fleet to form back up before engaging more enemies. So this should tell our Tartan here to turn around. Okay, he seems set on destroying that. And of course, call to arms summoned the ones that jumped away earlier. Okay, in this situation, we're just going to, let's see, we're going to combat command, carrier command, attack all enemies. We're also going to do the fleet, attack all enemies. I don't have a chance to reposition because I forgot about the quantum jump gate and that they're in the middle of the sector. We don't have time to reposition and get everyone in formation again. Typically, you want to reform your formation before engaging anything, but because there's already a Tartan engaged here, and there's already fighters out, we don't want our fighters to be chased back to the Quasar, because they will get killed doing that. It's better just to fight rather than to run in this situation. And we should be able to take out these rebels. The Marauder Cruiser is not the biggest threat. Though our Aero Corvette is not in the area, so if it starts shooting missiles, we are going to have some trouble with that. Alright, our own missiles took it out. Okay, now we can reform the fleet. So fleet, call to arms, broadcast to the fighters, dock at the Quasar. And let's head back there ourselves. And then our fleet will be reformed for these pirate fighters. And that's basically it. The only other thing is logistics with the energy cells, as I mentioned, using equipment dock, which I'm currently not doing. Or you can use supply command software. And supply command software will have all of these ships be refueled by a single ship using a transporter device for energy cells. And that's basically it. You can grow this fleet over time. All you have to do is just buy more ships. A bunch of corvettes goes a long way. And there is an unspoken truth about X3, and that is simply that fighters are not optimal. I mean, the best fleets are just corvettes and up with 0 fighters because they take almost 0 losses that way. But unfortunately for X3, fighters are cool. And Star Wars fighters are especially cool. So using fighters isn't optimal. You will take a few losses here and there, but as I've shown, they're super easy to get more of. If we look at Heretics End, we've already got a big rebel fleet fighting the Imperials. So there's going to be more abandoned ships, and you just add them over time. They'll accumulate at your tug base here in Galactic Empire over time. And, once they build up a whole bunch from all your salvaging around the universe, you just load them all up on your Quasar again. You might need to get a second Quasar, or just buy more fighters, and eventually your fleet will grow big enough that you'll want to move on to MLCC. But for now, just doing stuff like this, I know this has kind of been a mess of all over the place, but I just want you guys to see how I react in these situations. I don't just strictly stick to commands. I'm still issuing commands, to individual ships during the battle. I'm constantly reevaluating the situation. It's okay to give ships random commands. Now, if you're using a wing, which again, I hate wings. I will never tell anyone to use a wing. You can't give individual ships commands. Like I told that Aero Corvette to do something, or I told the Carrack to break off and do its own thing. You can't do that with a wing. So you could use wings. Some people might want to put the fighters in a wing. I personally would never put the fighters in the wing. The broadcast to all ships works just fine for me. And don't use those fleet commands in here besides call to arms. These other ones don't work. You want to do broadcast to all fleet ships. And that should be it. The only thing is if you're playing a mod specifically called Mayhem 2, the second version of Mayhem, then you can use these commands. But if you're not using that specific mod, then don't use those commands. Alright, good luck out there with your first fleet.